Hi, Renee.
Renee.
Good morning. Welcome, Gordy. I see that you are muted. And hello, everybody. Welcome to Talks on Tuesday. We have a small audience and group today, but that's okay. I think everyone's kind of recovering from the holiday yesterday. Those who celebrate, hope you had a great time. And I'm Barbara Solomon. I'm here with Chelsea Richens, Mary Chase, Renee Sugar, and Gordy Richens to Talks on Tuesday. And we're going to spend about a half an hour just chatting about every week it's a variety of different topics. Today we're going to talk about spirituality and what it means to you. Glad everybody's here. Yep, we just lost Gordy. I think to me, it's something that is kind of below the surface. It's something that people talk about or maybe even just feel and don't talk about as a connection to the natural world and to something that's even bigger and beyond our physicality. And a lot of people, I think, try to turn to religion looking for spirituality. I think religion maybe started as a means to obtain spirituality. And some people probably still feel that way, but I know that in my circle of friends, which is limited, but a lot of people feel that they're spiritual, but not necessarily religious. And I just wanted to touch on that and see what people think. So feel free to jump in, you guys, whenever, if you want anything you wanted to share about that.
I like how you said something just below the surface, because I've been thinking about today's topic, and I can't it's something that's there, but it's either behind the veil or in front of the veil. And sometimes we're there with it, or sometimes it seems separate, but ultimately it is a description of our connection to oneness and source and all it is, and uh, kind of life happens, and then spirituality brings us just back to being. That's what I'm trying to say.
And for me, it's like there are all of these kind of, I'll say, sensations and sudden awakenings and thoughts that occur, which are kind of amorphous and undefinable. But what it means in my life is a shift in priorities, a shift away from what I look like or where I go or who I talk to, how what kind of success I have, to just a way of being in the world.
What we value,
Yeah.
yeah, in the terms of the hierarchy of, like you said, what we look like, what we do, what, our profession, but there's something more, the meaning behind it all, without showing the the value that can go up and down. Just, it's, I don't know, there's something ethereal about it that I'm having a hard time putting my thumb on.
Yeah. It is very hard to articulate.
Yes.
It is an underlying energy that integrates and connects everyone, everything, every being. And I experienced, when I was struck by a vehicle, an out of body experience, NDE, if you want to call it that. And in that moment, at that particular time in my life, was the first sort of time that I had that sense of being absolutely suspended in this presence that was so ineffable, so so indescribable, and so all-encompassing that there are no words to actually give it. But it never leaves. Like the awareness of it never leaves. We leave it.
Yes.
We disconnect ourselves from it.
Mhm.
We push
Yes.
it away sometimes because maybe fear is more the motivation that makes us feel separate, and ego is what sort of precipitates fear. And then we sort of build all these layers and walls against that interconnectedness, which is so wonderful in its own way that when you have experienced it, you really never want to let it go. But, you know.
And Renee, do you find that it's hard for you to go back to that knowing space? You know, in the everyday world, kind of like walking around in the finite that we are.
No, actually, I prefer that space.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer to be as immersed in it as I possibly can, because it is so benevolent and so loving
Mm-hmm.
that I don't know the right way sometimes, or a lot of the time. So if I go back to the center and I ask, is this the right way? I'm probably going to get sort of nudged in a better direction than if I think I'm going to be figuring it all out and taking it all on my shoulders and thinking that I have to find the way. But if I allow myself to be guided, the way is revealed to me. So,
Right. You wait and you listen.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of receiving. That's kind of what the receiving is all about. And it's so interesting how every culture has some sort of institution, I guess I'll say, for connecting with spirituality. It's like whether it's a church or some sort of ritual dance, or there's such a variety of ways, but every culture, and maybe not people on an individual basis, but many people do something also to try to connect with that. I mean, I remember as a kid would stand out in our backyard. We had like a little hillside that went down just a small ways, but would stand on the top of the hill and spin, and then lay down and roll down the hill, and we get like really dizzy and disoriented. And I think that was our way of trying to connect, with something that's like out there that's bigger. And yeah, it's just fascinating how it's so innate, I think.
I think it's interesting that so many of the cultures have superstitions that accompany their belief system. And I think it's, superstitions are almost always about fear. And maybe they sense in spirituality this great safety. And that's why they pack these things together. Let's not do this because it could happen. And if I do this, the gods will smile on me or whatever. It's and yet in deep spirituality, you dismiss that fear. You don't reinforce it with ritual or action.
Right. I think some of that is just a way of trying to understand, because we are, when we are separate, finite, we sometimes forget and try to understand what's happening behind, what's causing this. And I mean, I remember when I was working in ICU, and we had a patient came in who had severe encephalitis, and she was so debilitated, and she wasn't speaking, but she was kind of like grunting and making these movements, and her pupils were two different sizes. And I was looking at her, and she looked kind of fearsome, and I was thinking, I can see how, back in the olden days, people thought, oh, she's being possessed by the devil, because there wouldn't be any other explanation before they understood about viruses and bacteria and things like that. That devil thing would make sense. And yeah, it was fascinating. So I think it's wanting to have an understanding. And when you get so caught up in, again, daily life, the here and now, and you forget to sit and just listen, like what you were talking about, Renee, just sit and be.
Yeah.
Then you look for other reasons, and it's easy to assign something, a term or a witch or a devil or something like that.
Well, this truth that we all know that we cannot describe it in words is part of the burden of living on earth, that here we're put in these bodies and we're told, oh, here's language, this is a tool you can use. It won't usually work very well, but it's what you have. And we struggle with it. And sometimes, like, I taught English for a long time, and that was my life. I thought you could explain anything in words, but you can't.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't even describe a room or a dog or something really physical in words that really convey the meaning, let alone what it means to stand on a mountaintop and look down through the clouds.
Right. Yeah.
You can try to describe the room, but you can't 100% do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. If I say chair, we have 4 different notions in this room of what that chair looks like.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. And yet there's been times when I've communicated with people just kind of like mind to mind, and I get information that even sometimes when I try to explain what they were conveying, it's hard to find words for that because, again, there just aren't. And yet I totally understood it, but trying to share it was a challenge. So yeah, it's interesting. And yet it'd be so nice if we all could just kind of do what they call ESP, just kind of like read minds and I mean, I used to think when I was a kid, it would be so easy. I mean, it would be so easy for people to take good care of themselves health-wise if our skin was clear, because then we can see what was on the inside. And like if somebody was smoking, then see what it did to their lungs. It might make them less likely to do stuff like that.
Right.
And yet it's not. It's like,
here on earth, we have several kinds of blindness that we have to deal with. And maybe the seeking spirituality is the search for some kind of clarity that our body mind doesn't allow us.
Yeah.
I like Renee when she mentioned the word energy. It just reminds me that everything goes back and is energy at its source.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always like the expression, the spirit is the person. And it sounds so simple, but really all that we give or all that we share is the spirit. And whatever we create, being someone who's highly creative, I don't create anything. Something works through me and allows me to have the focus and the concentration to bring something into being that did not exist before.
Right.
And case in point, for Christmas, I did the very first video I've ever done.
Yeah.
So I said ahead of time, I had this idea in my mind. I really would like to create a video with a Christmas theme to it that I could share with whomever I chose to share it with. And that was the beginning. I was put in a place where I had an inspiration, but I had to really sort of get myself out of the way so I could be quiet enough to sort of think it through. So it turned out okay, but my spirit made the decision. But the spirit, my spirit, everyone's spirit is always ahead of the form. Mm-hmm. So when you talked about being in the body, I'm not always in the body, but my spirit is always way ahead. And my body has to go through. I put my body through hell getting me from the moment of inspiration to the outcome that I'm envisioning or hoping is going to manifest. Because it ain't magical by any stretch of your imagination. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think in some ways it is kind of magical, just the fact that we're able to just be here and do stuff, and create and function. And but you're right. I mean, what we're seeing right now is actually old news almost, and we're continuing to always create more and put it out there, and then we catch up. I think that I agree with you there. That's totally true.
I think spirit is more aware of possibility than the mind is. And it's that awareness of possibility that spurs the mind to try to figure stuff out and make it work. Because if we think about stuff too long, we think we can't do it.
Right.
It's spirit that keeps saying, "Yeah, come on, it's completely possible."
Yeah.
Release. Body works hard. Spirit runs ahead. Yeah, you're right.
And I love what you said, Mary, a week ago or so. Take your head off and leave it on the floor, because it doesn't help. It doesn't help.
Yeah. Overthinking.
Oh,
Yeah, I am just so impressed still by Mozart, who just sat down and would create, these beautiful sounds. I mean, he'd just sit there and write it up, and it was like perfect every time. And it's like, wow, what was he connected to that did that? And of course, it's like source. We all know that.
Yeah, it's a form of channeling.
Yeah, totally. And yet, I think if you asked him, and of course I don't know him, but I wonder how if he would consider himself a spiritual person. Religion was so strong back then.
Yeah. Well, he was a Mason, and he got into a lot of trouble because the Empress was strict Catholic. I think so much of his music reveals his spirituality, whether or not he could articulate it. A completely material person could not have written that.
Yeah. And that connection with source, all that is, I mean, it's just incredible. And to think that it's never ending. I mean, there's so much that's available for all of us. Sometimes it's almost like a little overwhelming, It's incredible.
Parts of it are hard when you're aware, if you think you live in this world in a body. But if you set that aside and just let it come to you, follow the path that's opening in front of you, it becomes easier.
Yeah. And much more fun too, I think, so much more interesting.
Yeah, I hate planning. It so often betrays me.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a certain something to be said for planning, but you also need to be flexible and willing to adapt. I think adaptability is key.
Yeah, the expression "man plans, God laughs."
Oops.
Yeah, absolutely. I've thought of that so many times, like, going on my great vacation to England and breaking my leg the first day. It's like, okay, supposed to stay in bed this time.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a saying that I heard one time that I love, and I don't know who to attribute it to, but it's something like, plan like you'll live forever and live like you'll die tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's kind of like just grasping the now. and being so involved with the deliciousness of what's right here, and accepting and enjoying it.
Yeah.
Because this is it, for all of our projections and all of our forecasts and all of our hopes and desires and all the rest of that. This is it. Don't try. And we all, I speak for myself, but I've tried to evade it and elude it and escape from it for a long time. And it always catches up in one way or another and says, are you paying attention? Because if you're not, something is going to happen that's going to get your attention. And then you're going to have to pay for it. So it doesn't always work in our favor, when we try and push too hard for something to happen,
Yeah, I think that path of least resistance is a message. If there are a lot of boulders in the path, that's not the one you should take.
Yeah.
Because you're getting a message, don't go this way.
Yeah.
Or you could take it and have a bumpy ride.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could. It's a metaphor.
Yeah.
They always go two ways.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that awareness of what's happening is, to me, spirituality. It's that knowing and realizing if I'm going to climb over these boulders, there's something to be gained from it. It might not be as easy as going around them or, taking the other way, but there's always something that could be waiting for me, that could benefit me, and that awareness of knowing instead of just trudging ahead, forcefully without any consideration. To me, that's, I think, spirituality, and what it really, at least one aspect of it. I mean, there's so much to that word. But
right. Well, awareness is certainly a tool for spirituality. And paying attention.
Yeah. Awareness of the joy of now, and not like joy as in elevated excitement, but just the joy and the contentment of the now. Awareness of that. Nothing next year is going to make me as happy as I could be right now. And if I look, I'm already there with good friends right now.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah. When I hear people say that phrase, I can't wait till, it's like, well, number one, you're going to have to wait. and number two, you don't know what's going to, it's like, I just, appreciate what's here, what's being here. And sometimes I try to phrase it as more like I look forward to, but it's still more, and maybe again, it's just semantics and words and stuff, but it's like, I'm here now, and so I'm going to just be, because we're just coming out of a big holiday and the holiday season, Thanksgiving, and then there's Hanukkah and Christmas and Kwanzaa's I think started
today.
The New Year, and you had that big whole list, Mary, last week of all the different holidays. It's a good time to just think about spirituality, because a lot of them are kind of religiously based, and I think people kind of went to religion initially to satisfy that kind of drive for spirituality, or that drive for connection, or wanting to be involved with something that's more and bigger. But for me, in my own personal path, I didn't find it there. I just found it someplace else, like with you guys, and just being aware of the now, like what you were saying, Chelsea, just being here.
Yeah. Here is all there is.
like that cartoon I saw last week with the little dog sitting in a gift wrapped box, and it says, "Just live in the present." It's like, yeah, that's so true.
Just jump in and live there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
A lesson from our animal friends. It's
totally.
always here and now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how much present they are, how much in the right now they are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how,
I suppose squirrels put nuts away for the winter, but they're just following instinct. So they're not investing in the stock market or that kind of.
yeah. I always wondered how they can find those nuts, or if they can just go around and find nuts that are squirrels kind of stashed away someplace.
A lot of times they don't find them because they sprout up in my window boxes sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay, well, it's just about time. Any final comments before we get started with the music again?
I love these sort of meandering conversations that sort of they have their own pathway and they all connect and it's interesting.
Yeah, no pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's what makes it fun. That's one thing we try to really do is just kind of let it free flow. Well, thanks. Thanks for joining us today, Renee. We'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, everybody.